The United States just placed a 10% tariff on everything that the Dominican Republic exports. This is textiles, medical devices, agriculture, cacao, sugar, all hit by tariffs. In today's video, we're going to talk through all of it because these tariffs will hurt the Dominican Republic, but also they're going to create one hell of a boom. Sounds contradictory, but stick with me and I'll prove it to you. If you understand global trade, what these tariffs actually mean, and how the Dominican Republic is currently positioned, this isn't a hit as much as it is a pivot point. I'm going to walk you through who this hurts, where the opportunity is, and what you and I, smart people, can do inside and outside of DR to respond. So let's get at it. All right, so here's the deal. Tariffs create pressure. There's no doubt about that, especially in core sectors like manufacturing and textiles where margins are really thin. An extra 10% tariff, which is what the Dominican has been hit with, they create a squeeze. The peso starts to devalue against the dollar. Businesses respond by cutting labor, cutting costs, and the most vulnerable to all of this are the poor, low-wage workers here in the country. If you're already struggling to buy groceries and put food on the table and your currency is worth less, that's hard, especially if your hours are cut and all of that. At the same time, there's tremendous opportunity, and this could actually fuel an economic boom in the country longer term. Why? Because everyone's getting tariffed. The US and Trump imposed tariffs, reciprocal or otherwise, on every country in the world other than two: Canada and Mexico. I'll talk about those in just a little bit. If there were only a tariff imposed on one or two or three countries, then they are at a disadvantage versus the rest. But when everyone gets tariffed at least 10% worldwide, it just creates a new floor. And the Dominican Republic's relative position is favorable. I'll explain. But first, I don't want to sugarcoat the impact to many in this country that are on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, that are factory workers or lower wage income earners. Here's what that looks like. Let's say you work in a textile factory here in the Dominican Republic, and the company sells to a US buyer for $3 a unit. Well, naturally, hey, we just got hit with a 10% tariff and buyer in the United States. So now it's not $3, it's $3.30. You know what that company in the United States probably will say? Nah. It's $3, you figure it out. I'm not paying your tariff. Now, if they say that, the manufacturer is faced with a decision. Do we allow this account to go away, or do we figure out how to cut 10% of our cost out to maintain our margin, which is already thin? If they decide to cut out cost, what does that look like? The workers on the floor get less hours. Maybe their overtime is cut, which they've come to rely on. Certain benefits that they receive might be eliminated. No doubt it hits those folks and it hits them hard. On the flip side of that, with the inflationary pressure on the peso, which happens when something like this goes on, the peso devalues against the dollar. Imagine going to get eggs or milk or things for your family that you're already tight on. You're taking in less income and you have to spend more of it to buy the essentials. That's real. Those with the smallest cushion and the least wiggle room in their finances get hit the hardest, no doubt about it. But I believe that pain is short term, and here's why. While the Dominican Republic got hit with a 10% tariff, other countries that compete in the same industries with textiles and agriculture and medical device, they got hit way harder. Here's a few examples, we'll throw them up. Vietnam's tariff is 46%, Bangladesh, 37%, China, 34%, and Cambodia, 49%. Compared to 10%, all of a sudden it's not looking too bad. And when you look at cost of labor in all of those countries as well, they're around the same, if not more, than the Dominican Republic. So with that in mind, the Dominican Republic becomes one of the closest, cheapest, and most stable options for US companies looking to nearshore. Now, rightfully so, many of you may say, hey, Jamie, you're forgetting about two keys here. Puerto Rico is a US territory, no tariffs, and they're right there. Very similar sort of environment and economy. And Mexico didn't get tariffed at all. So what say you on that? Well, this is where cost of labor comes in. Mexico's cost of labor is about $3.80 per hour in the manufacturing space. Puerto Rico is $10.50 and more per hour. The Dominican Republic is $2.50. If you add on a 10% tariff, that goes to $2.75. So even with the 10% tariff in the specific industries I mentioned, non-tariff places like Puerto Rico and Mexico are still at a disadvantage because of the higher cost of labor. This makes DR, again, a sweet spot for nearshoring. But look, the argument that the Trump administration is making is that, well, hey, if you don't like these tariffs, then build in America. And many companies will in many sectors. You're seeing it in auto and in other areas. But once again, when it comes to reshoring, which is bringing business back to the United States in the specific industries that the Dominican Republic would be impacted by, you've got to, again, look at the cost of labor. For these industries in the United States, the average cost of labor is $35 plus per hour. That is a 10x higher cost than it is to manufacture in the Dominican Republic with 10% tariffs. Hell, with 100% tariffs. The likely flow, this is my projection, is companies see this, they get spooked, and they say, okay, we go back to the United States. What's the cost going to be? Wow, that's high. Where are the tariffs the lowest? Let's go to those countries and start to nearshore production there for the industries that we think we can do the most with. So this not only impacts the three industries that we're talking about, textiles, medical device, and agriculture, but we get back to the discussion, if you've been following me for a while, of semiconductor, microchip, those sorts of productions can still happen here at a discount compared to the cost it would be in the United States. So while many are emotional about the impact of tariffs in this global trade war, and while it will impact the markets, as I record this, the market dropped 1,600 points in one day after the announcement of tariffs going in on April 5th. When you look at the data and you analyze this in the way that we are right now, you're going to see the emotional shock to the system followed by practicality. And that practicality, given all the numbers I just gave you, means Dominican Republic wins. Now look, if I were sitting down with somebody that is a low-wage worker that works in a manufacturing somewhere in the country, and I were to say to them all of this, they might look at me and say, screw you. And I completely get that. But here's the advice I would give them. You got to follow the flow of the money. The peso will be cheaper against the dollar. That means the US dollar goes further here. Tourism, real estate, construction, all benefit from that. That's just historically and financially accurate. So if I'm somebody in a lower wage position in a factory and I'm afraid of the impact of this in the short term especially, I'm looking at tourism, I'm looking at construction, I'm looking at real estate, I'm looking at hospitality. Hell, I'm looking at Uber as areas within which I would place my time and energy to generate the most return. But many of you watching this are more like me, who will feel little to no impact from this likely. In fact, many of you probably see how this could actually benefit you. And here's what I would say. You are in a strategic window right now. The Dominican Republic currently, before all these tariffs, was more attractive to foreign money than it ever had been. And when you look at every country going up at least 10%, and then many of them going up even higher, the shockwaves will emanate more in other places. And those who are analyzing these numbers are going to look back at Dominican Republic and say, okay, low tariffs, low cost labor, great manufacturing hub, likelihood of semiconductor production, and then tax-friendly, confouture, and all these other benefits that are out there for investors, especially in real estate. It directs capital here. Maybe not today, maybe not in a week, maybe not in a month, but in the near term, a lot of money flows in. And again, when the peso is down, which it will be, the dollar goes further. That means buy land, buy pre-construction, buy property. This is how people build wealth in global shifts. The masses will have outrage over this, but here's my thing. There is zero value in outrage. But look, let me share this. A lot of people that watch my content, they would say, Jamie, you're too optimistic, you're sunny, you're always gonna sell the good part of DR. And I can understand that perception. But here's the reality of it. I'm an opportunist. I don't get lost in policy. When I see a policymaker make a decision, whether it's Biden or Obama or Trump or anybody, I'm saying, great, with that policy decision, where's the avenue for me? When you think about things in terms of where's the opportunity, you're always looking then for the positive side of whatever just happened. That's the entrepreneur in me. I've always had it in me. Even recently, I've realized in corporate, still for 21 years when I was there, I always had this mindset of like, okay, that's great, that happened. What can we do about it? I remember saying to my team at one point when things got really hard, multiple times, like, hey, there's two stories we're gonna be able to tell at the other side of this. We didn't perform because of this policy, or we outperformed despite the policy. And to me, as a guy who likes to win, I'd much rather tell the story of how we did it no matter what you threw in front of us. And that's what this is. So for those that see it as too positive, too sunny and shiny, you're selling DR, you could have that opinion. If I lived here and I moved to Cambodia tomorrow, I would find where the opportunity is there. Hell, Bangladesh, any of these countries with the high tariffs, if I were there, I would find the opportunity there. But I'm here. So I'm gonna find the opportunity here. Where I think I have more of a challenge and something that I have to do better with is acknowledging the pain. My mind goes right into like, okay, that's what happened, now what? And I don't take a moment to look at those, maybe some of you out there, some folks that you know, family members that live here, friends, whatever it might be, that will be impacted, that are these factory workers that I just mentioned about on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, whose peso is gonna go less far than it did a week or 2 weeks ago. I don't take a second and say, I completely understand. I really do, that there's an impact there. And I have to get better at taking the time to say that and taking the time to acknowledge that. And in this video, what I hoped to do was, if you know somebody like that, for sure, do the same, acknowledge for them the pain they're gonna feel, especially in the short term. But then, hey, here's some advice, here's some ways. How can we help? How can we get you into another industry that does have boom potential? Or if they're able to wait through it, I'd really see on the other side of it that even factory work will still be something that not only provides wages, but may provide more opportunities, as we talked about with semiconductors. So in this video, I hope you get that. I completely understand the impact to many people, and I hate that it has to happen. It's the reality of the world. It's one of those cold truths. There are people out there that will be impacted negatively. At the same time, there is a ton of opportunity for those of us who are not going to get lost in the weeds of Trump bad, Trump good, Biden good, who aren't sitting on the other side of this right now and saying, this dude's MAGA, or this dude's woke, or whatever the hell people think about me. And instead understand, like, all right, I get it. This happened. We can't change that. I have no control over that, nor do you, until you vote again in 3 years. So what can we do about it? And for me, that's what we can do. All right, so let's boil this all down with the final takeaways for this video. 1, tariffs hurt, especially for the poor, but everyone is getting tariffed, and most harder, and most are getting tariffed way harder than the Dominican Republic is. This actually makes the Dominican Republic more competitive globally. You just have to watch this over the next 3 to 6 months in particular, maybe sooner, but just watch. US reshoring on these particular industries and many others is just not realistic. Nearshoring is much more realistic. The US wants trade partners that are much closer to it than China and Taiwan, and DR is still incredibly positioned for that. DR tourism, DR real estate, 2 things that have been booming. This creates an even bigger economic, less value of the peso against the dollar, more buying power for the dollar, more international investment, especially in a place that's politically stable and has the infrastructure in the areas where people are investing to continue to grow and scale, and has made investments in things like semiconductor development and so on. If you are or know of somebody that's impacted negatively by this, follow the money. Look for where the money's going and get into those industries. But if you're not affected, boy, this is one of those moments where you can build tremendous wealth, tremendous income, if you're smart about where you're investing and keeping your eye on all that's happening down here. If you're in need of a real estate agent, a developer, an attorney, anybody in that regard, I have referral partners down in the caption of this video that you can click on the link and I'll make sure to connect you to them. These are people that I work with and trust, and I'm happy to share them with you. And of course, they're going to pay me some sort of referral fee if you opt to work with them, but do your own due diligence on all of them. If you have interest in land, I'm working on a project in Miches, which is north of Punta Cana, where you may be able to get land for as little as $20,000 and even do it with payments. That link below to get on that wait list is there. There's no pressure on this. If it helps you, use it. And lastly, I'll say this, for those of us that do benefit, I do believe that those of us blessed enough to have abundance in our lives should pay it forward and pay it back. How I do that is with an organization called Second Mile Missions. If it's in your heart to donate to them, they seek to end poverty and human trafficking here in the Dominican Republic. And I've helped raise over $30,000 thanks to many of you coming to events that I host to put kids through school that otherwise wouldn't have a chance to here in the Dominican Republic. Build your wealth, pay it forward, do good in the world, and we all win. If you want to know more about investing and living down here in the Dominican Republic, I'll put this video up so that you can take a look at it next, and I'll see you all on the next one.